Mind if I just place this right here?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Careful, because my microphone
I do this the whole
on
time.
my camera,
Is that gonna
so
bother you?
if you bump it, my
So I have to record
microphone
all over again.
Alright.
Hi, my name's Dan Collette. I'm from a talk show web series called Game and Talk. We're mostly video game focused, and I'm a big fan of your work in video games.
Awesome.
I'm a big fan of the Persona series, and I know that you played 2 characters in the Persona 4 series. So I was wondering kind of what is your approach to a situation where you're playing 2 characters in the same story? Do you treat it differently as opposed to playing just one character?
I do if I know ahead of time.
Yeah.
With Persona, I didn't know.
Really?
So when I went in, I only thought I was playing Adachi, and then towards the end of that session, then they told me you're also doing the protagonist. So then I was like, what? What about? So I panicked a little bit. They probably told me, I just probably didn't pay attention the first time. But usually I try to, if I know roughly how many I'm going to do or an idea, then I kind of limit my range. And then I texture my voice a little bit. It just depends, you know, on what it is and how cartoony or how, if it's not cartoony. But in that case, I didn't. So it just kind of. But luckily, that first one it was mostly just call outs and shouting for Narukami.
Yeah.
So I got away with it that first time. And eventually, I had to think about it a little more.
Yeah, when they added in voice.
Exactly, and did the animation.
Yeah.
So I had to make a conscious effort there to make it different.
Thank you.
Joe Sigadel, Operation Rainfall. We cover video games and anime as well. Also a big fan of your work. I know that you started out doing Power Rangers, of course, but something I've always wanted to ask you was, what was it that caused your transition to anime? What was it about it that attracted you?
I needed a job, basically. I was working, after Power Rangers, the stunt guys from their the Alpha Stunts, Japanese stunt team, they were doing an action film, and they cast me as the lead, because I could do my own stunts, and there were certain things I can do, you know, that I could relate to them as I kind of could do my own stunts and kind of relate to them as far as stunt work. Anyways, so they're Japanese, the camera's Japanese, but the sound equipment and the sound guys were not Japanese, and so somehow the audio got screwed up in that transfer. So when they finished the film and it was all done, it was just static. And so I had to go in and dub myself. And as I was dubbing myself, the producer walked in, heard my voice, and mentioned a couple times that I had a good hero voice. And then he asked me to come in and audition for an anime, which was Trigun, and I booked that role as Vash.
Right.
And that was really just the door opening up for me at that point. And it wasn't something where I was like, oh, I want to get into voiceover, anime. I wasn't really even aware of the whole, you know, industry of voiceover. I mean, I knew it was there because growing up, obviously, I watched cartoons and stuff, but I just didn't think about that, you know. And I was more focused on, I just want to be an action star, you know. But then that opened up a whole new area for me, and actually kind of really gave me more opportunity because, I mean, obviously on camera I'm just a half Asian guy, you know, unless they're going to be doing some, you know, weird makeup or whatever. But and so in anime I can play various different characters, you know. So it was a good opportunity for me.
Thank you. Patrick Garrett, WAMC, Northeast Public Radio, so NPR stuff. I'm going to start off with the easy one. So, your favorite role that you've taken on, what would it be? Why did it appeal to you? And why is it Code Geass?
It's hard to choose my favorite role because there are a lot of them that I really enjoyed, Code Geass being one of them. I think maybe one of the ones that I really enjoyed, and that one was kind of hard actually, but one of the ones I think is one of my more favorites would be Nero in Devil May Cry 4. And For a couple of reasons. You know, the first reason was I got to go to Japan and do motion capture for the character. And then also, I wasn't limited to picture, because I was used to doing a lot of anime where I had to match flaps, you know, or if the character was drawn screaming or crying or whatever, I had to do exactly that, you know. I mean, I could do my own take on that, but I still had to match what was already drawn on the animation. So this way, it's just a script at Devil May Cry 4. And as Nero, I get to make all those choices where I wanted to take them emotionally, you know. And so there's more freedom to create the character with that. And it's truly me being, you know, really creating that character. So that would be one of my most favorite. Thank you.
So, of course, I have to ask the Power Rangers question. So, what was your most memorable moment playing, you know, Green, Zeo, and Adam Park and Power Rangers?
Most memorable moment. Well, there's so many moments. You know, I was on there for quite a while. There's like almost 200 episodes I did. It's really hard to pick a moment, but one that sticks out only because I talk about it, you know, often, is just in that first movie. You know, when we all lose our powers and we have to search for our inner animal.
My favorite, of course.
In the script, it was just laid out as, you know, she goes through it. You're this, and you're that, and you're this, whatever. And the same thing with the frog. It was because it was like quick or whatever it was. It was like something to do with speed. But I was bummed about some other stuff. I'm a little bitter about some other situations that were going on. I asked the director if I could just be bummed out about getting a frog because they're not that cool, you know. And he was like, well, let's do it like the script is written first, and then maybe we'll entertain your idea. And they did, you know, and I got to be bummed out and say, I'm a frog, you know, and be upset that I had a frog, and they liked it. And they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that again, and let's do this, you know. So it's kind of cool to be able to contribute to that a little bit, you know. For me, it's like the only thing I really remember from that. Other than Jason Frank always pulling pranks and trying to kill me and stuff like that.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Ashley Anthony, and I'm with the WSU Center for Community and Media at Wichita State University. And I also have a Power Rangers question.
Okay.
I was wondering whether you've seen the most recent film, and if you feel like that film captured the essence of the original series and franchise.
It's a great question for another day, because I have not seen it. So I don't have an answer for you yet. But I've heard great things about it. Pretty much all the other Rangers that have seen it that I know have mentioned, you know, they've only had great things to say about it, you know, so I haven't seen it. Nobody spoiled anything really yet that the fans haven't already spoiled. Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. I gotta wait a little bit though. For me, I don't know. I just want to wait. Let it, you know, die down a little bit, and then I'll go check it out or something.
Hi, I'm Andrew from Wicked Anime. I guess my question would just be simply, being in the anime industry for an extended period of time, do you have a favorite title, a favorite anime, not necessarily one that you've been in?
Well, I mean, there were, before I really got into anime, there were a couple, you know, I mean, Speed Racer I really liked when I was younger. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust was pretty freaking sweet when I first saw it. I was like, whoa, what is this? I thought Ninja Scroll was rad too. That came out about, you know, when ninjas were cool, so it was really awesome. But certain scenes you can't watch with mom. You know which ones I'm talking about, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a couple there. Even Akira, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, that was the first one actually that I knew or heard the name anime. You know, and then most of the time I think people would call it Japanime at that time. It was like Japanime.
Yeah.
Or Japanimation, right? Yeah. You have a question?
Yes. Hi, I'm Evan Borgo from the Boston Bash Brigade. Longtime fan of yours, both with voice acting, live action, and even your music career too.
Oh.
So something a little bit related to what you were just talking about with the Power Rangers movie, about like spirit animals and such. My question is, what character that you portrayed, either by a voice or on screen, would you say is your spirit animal or guide of sorts?
My You mean like in real life?
I would, yeah, in real life.
So in real life, what character
Yeah.
would be my spirit animal?
Yeah.
Or spirit anime? Or whatever? Gosh, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of all of them, really, because each of those characters that I've voiced have a little bit of me in them. I have to tune into a certain part of that character,
Right.
Like Makoto in Free, there's just that kindness and, kind of the big brother kind of character, I tune into that for that character specifically, And Izaya, I tune into my douchebag side, So it just depends on the character. They each have, I think for each of them, I am their spirit animal. The other way around, it's like all of them balled up, like that, rolling around. And I don't know, it's weird. It's weird to think of it like that. But it's all of them, Except Ryunosuke from Fate Stay United. I hate that kid. I hate him as a person, that's why. Not that I hate the anime, it's not that at all. I don't hate the anime, but I just hate that person. I'm glad he died. Sorry, I ruined it for someone.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra from Mythical Entertainment. You've played characters with a variety of different personalities over the years. How do you prepare for the challenges each new character brings?
I usually, if I know what I'm getting into, I look it up. I do a bit of research. I try to find any information I can online, just so I'm a little prepared. And then when I go in, I ask a ton of questions. And the director or the producer, whoever else is in there, will usually tell me some things about the character, maybe some backstory that's not, being revealed or whatever. And then I just kind of go from there, find an age, for the character, and then you usually just start rehearsing, tone. Or if you audition and they play back the audition, this is what we got to do that.
Hi, I'm Betty Fallon. I'm from Comics Alliance, and I do co-host for the Sailor Moon podcast, Sailor Business. And I was wondering, what did you do to prepare for Artemis?
There was actually a lot on YouTube. So I did look up quite a few things. I wasn't super familiar with it. I knew of it. I knew the show, so obviously. Just being around, anime fans. I knew Sailor Moon, but I didn't know the show that well. And so when I started to look up Artemis, I kept getting this picture of, not a cat, it was like some guy. And so I thought, oh, it's a guy, okay, it's just some dude. And then when I went in, I was like, oh, wait, he's a cat. Oh, okay. And then for the audition. And then I saw, actually I auditioned a couple times for it. I auditioned for a few other characters, not Artemis. And then they sent me Artemis again to audition. And then I kind of responded late, or I got it late, and I was like, I'm just not going to do it. And then they sent me another email, they audition for this. I was like, oh, okay. And so I remember looking up a few things and trying to figure out what I could find. Actually, was some stuff that they did in Canada. I think, what's his name, Ruben. So I kind of heard what he did, and I got to listen to the Japanese, and then I kind of got to do my own take on it, and especially the original series. I really like Artemis. I just want, there's a whole Artemis arc, that would be freaking awesome, because he just, I don't know, he just does really goofy things. Like, I don't know, occasionally I'm like, man, this, like when he goes and sticks his hand in that thing, like, and it's like, I'm like, that, I just want more of that from Artemis all throughout. Or him getting stepped on or something. But, he's a lot of fun to play, he really is.
Right up here.
Is there anybody next? Oh.
Yeah, you.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's going back.
Didn't realize we got that covered. So you've been in some of the most legendary video games and anime of all time. How how does your experience differ from one medium to the other? Is there a difference in not only like approach and method, but also, I guess, interaction with the creators in video games as opposed to anime voice acting?
Yeah, it depends on the game. Sometimes you'll go in, you won't even know the name of the game, you know, and then and then it's like you're just going through all the dialogue. You don't even know what's going on because they're on a time crunch and they need to get it done. And so that happens often. You're just going through it. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I'm just saying, am I saying this right? What did they say right before me? And then, you know, you just go through it and then you're done. Other times, you know, they explain it to you, you know, like Mortal Kombat X, you know, they took the time to explain what was going on, you know, the story, and even just going through details of being like killed, you know, now your spine is being ripped out, you know, and then it's like, okay, it's very detailed instruction. So it kind of depends, you know, and sometimes it's kind of, they know that, or they're familiar with my work and they're just like, oh, this kind of character, that you're doing this, and it's lighter, it's easier. They kind of just trust that you know what you're doing, or are familiar with it. But yeah, it just depends on them. You know. I prefer to be given details, though, obviously. The ones where I'm like rattling them off, there's a few shows that I mean, the fans love, absolutely love. None of you have brought it up yet, but there's one of them especially that they love. And they're always asking me about it, and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know how to answer that because I remember it was one of the ones where it's just like, I'm just reading through them. And then, you know, doing the best I can with what little I've been given, but on a time crunch. You know, I've got to finish this in 4 hours, and then at the end, I have no idea what happens in the game, but all the fans are like, so what happened in this, or what did you think of this part of the story? And I'm like, I don't even remember the story. And I have to go in before, like, once I found out it was popular, I'm not going to mention the name, once I found out it was popular and people knew it, then I was like, okay, what's my character's name? And then I only know the name because one of the fans told me. And then I go through and I start watching clips on YouTube so I can kind of piece together what happened, you know, and I'm like, oh, then I can slowly kind of recall a few things. But
so that's why roles like Nero are more appealing.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I'm really attached to it. Like Nero, I just know that character, you know. So anytime if there's, you know, never mind. Okay, next question.
Okay, I've got a Jojo question for you.
Yes.
So, you played Jonathan Joestar in the first part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You know, it's an epic anime series, very popular,
adventure.
very bizarre, very popular worldwide. Did that add to the pressure? Was it intimidating at all, playing such a well-known and iconic character?
You know, the funny thing is, like, anytime you go in for something and you book a role, especially if it's like a lead or, you know, even supporting, they always tell you, this is a very popular, this is a very big one, you know, and then you do it, and then later you find out it's not. You know, they just say that. And so I was told that, you know, going in, and I'm like, sure, you know, and then so working on it, I didn't think that it was as big as it is, you know, and even working on it, I was like, what's going on here? You know, I'm fighting a head, you know, and it's like, this is crazy. And it's just like, just so extreme, you know, it's so wild. And I was like, man, this is crazy. And it wasn't until I had gone, you know, after, you know, a few of them started to come out, and then fans were talking about it, I was like, huh, so people do know this show, you know. That's the only time one of the reasons why I come to the cons is because when you're in the booth working on a show, you don't know anything, you know, even if they tell you this is popular, half the time it's not, you know, and so you're like, okay, sure, and then you just do the best you can, you know, and they don't reward you. They're not like, oh, way to go, that's great, you know. It's like putting on a play or in some theater and the crowd cheers. You get nothing. You're like, next line, and then so you just keep going, right? And so coming here, this is where I find out if I did a good job or if the show or the game or whatever was good, you know, that this is the reward. This is where I get to go, okay, so that show was important to people or had an impact on people, you know. So that's one of the reasons why I like coming to cons, because I get to find out that, you know. so yeah, but I did not know until until I started going. But in the beginning, yes. Anytime that for example, Akira, playing Condon, I knew that one going into it, so I knew it was big. So that one, I was freaking scared. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And I just had to just remove that and say, forget it, just be the character, and hope for the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a long answer for that one, but
It's a good answer.
I work for public radio, so a lot of people that I work with and serve are of the older generation, and they don't really quite understand what anime is or why it's popular, why it even deserves time. What would you suggest as an anime, whether you've been in it or not, as a starter for some of these
starter?
people? Yeah.
Code Geass definitely would be a starter. I think. I mean, I say it's the Breaking Bad of anime. It's got a great story, and you get to kind of follow, without spoiling too much, you get to follow kind of the antagonist, protagonist sort of. It's an interesting story, and also the thing about that one that I really like is it starts well and it ends pretty well, whereas a lot of anime, it starts good and then it's like they ran out of money or something, or it's like real slow, but then it ends really good. So Code Geass would definitely be one I would tell people to check out, But anime is just different, I mean, you guys, well, I know. I mean, I grew up watching like Tom and Jerry and stuff, and I loved it, And then once I saw like some anime with some dark stories, I was like, oh my goodness. It just was like interesting, And then of course we got the Batman series, so we got some cool stuff too, but it took a while before we got anything serious,
Thanks.
Not that they're all serious.
And actually, I forgot to mention Deborah Studebaker from MCC TV. Forgot to mention that last time. So you mentioned that you do your own stunts for Power Rangers. So
Some of them. We had a stunt team too.
how much did you have to put in to work on getting those stunts, and how much did you have to prepare?
Well, when I started the show, and the guys before me, you had to be a martial artist or a gymnast or a dancer. In fact, I remember when I saw the cattle call when I was training in the Shaolin school, and my instructor was looking at the newspaper and he saw this ad, was looking for new rangers, and it said you had to have, martial arts or gymnastics or dancing ability. Like you had to have one of those three to even just come out and audition. And I was a martial artist, but I could do acrobatic stuff. I could flip and do things like that. So as far as training, that was my background. So I was always training, and I really I became good friends with the stunt team, because they were doing cool things all the time, like just off the side doing cool things, and I would just go over there and try to do those same things, So yeah, I just trained all the time with those guys. And as far as like doing the stunts, like in the series, they tried to take as much footage as they could from the original Japanese.
I do remember that, yes.
Right. So especially earlier on, so a lot of the helmet head stuff, the Rangers in helmets, that stuff was a lot of Japanese footage. Or when they grew big, and that was, But we did eventually start shooting more and more of that, or whenever we needed to tie in whatever we had. But you could tell, like, especially the older stuff,
Yeah.
they cut to like, super grainy footage.
There's also the fact that the Yellow Ranger in the beginning was
a dude,
flat-chested.
yeah. Was a dude, yeah. But even the stunt guys, though, at the time, when much with the Japanese stunt, they were all dudes. So even the Pink Ranger was a dude.
Really?
Yeah. His name was Yuji.
Oh, interesting. Good to
An
know.
Asian guy, but he could stand like a woman. Really good at it. I mean, they did have other female stunt women for the movie, but yeah, those Japanese stunt guys were around for a long time.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you had any advice for college students or other young people interested in getting into the field of voice acting?
Voice acting specifically? Well, I would say that, it's voice acting, so you have to have acting ability, and you have to have a decent voice. Voiceover is tricky, you know, because it depends. Like, I mean, I would say it's harder to get into anime, you know, unless you live where it's being done. But voice acting, I think you got to kind of start like, I don't know, it's hard. It's hard for me to say because it was a total fluke for me getting in. So I guess the best way I could say this is like if you're wanting to get into it, and then you think you have a decent voice and you have acting ability, which you have to be able to take direction well too. But I would say put together a demo, you know, various different emotions, various characters, and then submit that to some agents and try to get auditions. That's the key, is getting an audition. And your agent can get you auditions. And you shouldn't have to pay your agent to do that. The agent gets money once you book a job. So yeah, don't fall into any traps either. People will take your money. People will definitely try to rip you off in the beginning. That's just the way it is, you know. For me, for anybody, you know, there are wolves out there that will try to take advantage of people every step of the way. So, yeah, you got to do a bit of research, you know, and but you also have to be willing to start from the bottom.
So with Trigun being your first step into the anime industry and voice acting, what was it like? How rewarding was it for you to have that be your first and one of your earliest projects in anime, and then have it come out being one of the most successful things and biggest projects you've ever done as far as popularity?
Very rewarding. I was very fortunate to fall into that, you know. And again, it was just something that it was just a job. You know, I didn't know that it was popular. I just did it, and then as I was working on it, I was like, man, I really like this show, you know, and just kind of hoping that people will hear about it, you know. And again, it was like, I went to my first con, and there were people dressed up as Vash, and I was like, wow, they get me. That it's so cool to see people dressed up as, you know, characters from a show you worked on, because then you just feel like, man, you just instantly, you know, have a connection, you know, even if they don't like your version. But it's very cool.
I'm wondering if there was a different tactic to tackling the role of Koizumi in The Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan compared to when you played the Jesper version of him in the original Haruhi Suzumiya series.
Well, the difference was different director, different writers, and different location. But I knew the character already as well. You know, I was very familiar with the character. And there are a couple things I didn't completely expect to happen in that one for the character. But, well, I can't say that I didn't expect it, but I was more surprised that they actually went there. I was like, oh, okay, so they are going there. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have to do anything really drastically for that because I was very familiar with the character. And it's really just along for the ride, basically. I keep looking at you like I'm expecting you to ask a question, but you're like, it's all good.
So you mentioned training physically for Power Rangers and shows like that, but what training did you have to go through in order to prepare for voice acting?
Well, I think most people do train for voice acting, but I think my training really is just from maybe singing, you know, and then just being fortunate enough to book roles like Trigun as my first one. That was like school for me. Learning to work the mic, not to pop my P's and all that sort of stuff. There was a lot of learning going on in Trigun. And Leah Sargent was a great director and very patient with me, you know, and really helped me to get into place for, you know, for Vash every single day. And so that, like I said, it was just school for me. Like going through school, and it was like 26 episodes of school, really. And so that's how I learned most of it, you know, all the tricks when I was there. I learned more later on, but I did learn most of them through trying.
With the rumors of the Kira live action movie keep popping up every few months, is there any characters that you have voiced that you would want to play live action?
That I would want to play?
Yeah.
Canada would be pretty
Yeah.
cool. They're also doing Bleach, right?
Mhm.
Gosh, I don't know. I'm not sure, man. Because I try to picture myself as that character, and Kanada's the only one that I can maybe see myself as. Any of the others, they just look too cool, you know. Not that Kanada doesn't, but you throw a red jacket on me, I think I could fit in just right. Gosh, yeah. I think that's, yeah, that one. Oh, you know which one I'd love to see? I'd just love to see it done, is Aji. It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. Ajin. Man, it's so cool. It's a really cool story. That one I would love to see. Yeah.
When you're involved with telling really some more, I guess you could say powerful stories like Akira, Kobe, some of the like really notable ones that really have an impact on people when they watch them, do you find that you feel some of that same impact playing the character? Do you find the characters that you play ever really like kind of not only connect but impact you as a person? If not, that's fine. Answer to that.
You mean impact me as far as like change my life, or?
Not necessarily to that degree, but like, does it ever help you kind of realize something about yourself? Like, do you ever find yourself learning from the characters that you play?
You know, no. I think it's more. It's kind of. It's again. It's like whatever the situation is, then I find some way to relate to it. You know, like from my own past. It's like I got like my baggage basically. I go like, what terrible thing did I go through? And it's gonna fit this situation, and I kind of, search in my mind and try to find something that is like, this is like this. Or sometimes I don't even know, like Code Geass, there's a couple scenes in there that I was just working on and just doing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, this is just like this moment when I was younger or whatever, and then my emotions just come out as I'm playing the character and are real, and so there were times like that where it's more like recalling, as I'm working on it I recall like an emotion, and then I'm like, why do I feel so attached to this? And I'm like, oh, that's right, that's this thing that happened, and so I find that a lot, especially in the more emotional things,
Yeah.
Obviously those ones.
So, I mean, you've been doing this for many, many years and played a lot of different roles. Are there any roles that stand out to you as being memorable because you had fun with them, like more fun with them, or you had like a more unique character?
Yeah.
Anything like that?
Yeah, there's a few of them that stand out as like fun. There are a few that were very tough. They were harder. There were a lot of things that I learned from some other ones, Let's see. I'm trying to think of an example that I can say that won't make something look bad. But, gosh. There's a couple of them, yeah, just all throughout. There's all sorts of things, good and bad, and just struggles. And I'll just say, Eureka 7 was one that was kind of a struggle for me at first. It was I believe it was after I did Last Exile. It was a young kid voice that I was doing, but I was coming in. Basically, I came in. I was working at the studio, and I saw that they were working on this show because I could see it, Eureka 7 or whatever, on there all the time. I'm walking by, and then I get this audition for a character in it. So I auditioned for the character. This is like weeks after I've seen it already there, and then I book the role, and they call me in. They say, all right, so here's what's happened. You're playing the lead role. I'm like, what? You guys have been working on this forever. And they're like, yes, but we had to recast. I'm like, oh, okay. So basically they had somebody else doing the voice, and they sent it to Japan, and they didn't like it. You know, they wanted it younger. And the person that was playing it before could have totally nailed that if they would just let them, but they didn't. They were just like, recast, you know, and say Eureka, not Eureka. And that's just what I've heard. And so anyways, and so I go in and I'm like, okay, well, I got to play this pretty young. And I'm playing him young. And they keep telling me, pitch him up higher, make him higher, make him higher. And so I'm working on this thing a few episodes in, and I'm like, does it have to be this high? Can I bring him back a little bit just because I want to have a little more emotional range, you know? And they're like, no, it's fine, it's fine. And I'm like, oh man, it just feels like I'm sounding whiny. Are you sure? And they're like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. And so that first volume comes out, and the reviews are great. You know, this is wonderful, it's the best, the voice acting is wonderful, except for Johnny Yong Bosch. He sounds whiny. And so, yeah, so that was one of those situations I'll always remember, and I always now, and then at that point too, it was still fairly early on in my career, and I didn't fight a lot. I would mention some things and say, hey, you think, you know, but you know, their way is always the right way, even now. It's like a director wants it this way. I might fight a little harder, but I'll always think about that moment, you know, and think, it's not your name that's going to be out there, you know, it's going to be my name. And I've seen it a few times too. Like there's been a couple other times when I've worked on something where maybe I didn't like what the director was wanting me to do. I wanted to do it this way, but the director wanted it this way. But I had to do it this way. And I'm like, I do the best I can with this way, you know, but this feels right. And then later I find out the fans or the reviews are kind of leaning that same way. And I'm like, dang it, you know. But it's part of the business, you know. And it's kind of unfortunate. Actually, I don't want to mention that second one. Eureka 7, eventually, after a few episodes, they were like, after they read that review, they were like, okay, yeah, we can bring it back a little bit. But, and not to fault them either, and to say that you guys are terrible for making me do that. They were scared that I would get replaced too, and then they'd be in the same thing and have an even smaller time frame to be able to get it done, you know. So there's a lot of that kind of goes into dubbing, which people don't realize. There's that time crunch, you know, and you got to hope that your writers are really good. A lot of times now, the directors are also writers or actors, and they're really good on the fly just to be able to adjust a line. A lot of us actors can also adjust, you know, or improv a few things too. But yeah, all throughout, there's all sorts of, you know, moments. And but Eureka 7 is one of my favorite shows that I've done. But it's just that first beginning moment that was like, I always think about that. It's my name that's going to be tarnished, you know. And so, anyways.
You have shows coming out, like live action adaptations, like Death Note, Ghost in the Shell, and they've all faced accusations of whitewashing.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, do you think it overall helps the industry to have a star, and that's usually what people say in defense, saying having a star like Scarlett Johansson have this role over an Asian actress?
You know, it's hard for me because I'm an Asian American, you know, and I would love to see Asian Americans play the Asian roles, you know, or Asians play the Asian roles. But you see it so much, you know. I don't know. It's half of me is like for it, and half of me is like whatever, because half of me is white. But and so I don't know if they needed her, you know. But then I'm not like a Scarlett Johansson. Like I don't go see everything she's in, you know. I'll see Ghost in the Shell because I like Ghost in the Shell, and I think the title alone of that one will make people go see it, you know. I don't think she'll do a bad job. I think she'll do a fine job. But it would be kind of nice to see, you know. But whatever, you know, who am I? I'm not producing. Until I get to produce a show, then, you know, I'll be the lead. This guy just so happens to be Asian American. Yeah. Did you guys see Iron Fist on
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Yeah, there's a couple things about that. I mean, I don't think that guy's a bad actor. He's definitely not a martial artist. As a martial artist, that's the other thing. It's like, if you are what they're trying to portray and they're not, and it's like, they're not doing kung fu right, man. I'm a kung fu guy. I was shouting kung fu and I see it. Because I know earlier on there, the only reason I'm saying this is because earlier on people were like, let's see an Asian do it, you know? I understand both sides to that because like originally, well, that's the way it was. But also back then, you know, they just weren't cool with Asian people. And so, yeah, so that was hard. Anyways, when you watch it, if you're a martial artist, then look at the kids in the belts. Like if you see a red belt and their belt is tied like a white belt, they're not a red belt. You know, that bothered me so much watching these kids, like with these different colored belts, you know, I'm like, that person is not yellow or red belt because that's not how you tie a belt, you know? As a white belt, you learn how to tie your belt, you know, and it's like, yeah, it's not it. It doesn't go, you know, and yeah, anyways, it really bothered me. Yes.
So, back to the Asian American topic, were there any struggles that you can yourself have been, you know, stuck into where it's the struggle of the American versus the Asian?
Well,
have you lost roles because you were Asian?
Well,
or not gotten roles?
Well, see, I'm kind of like I'm the fine line. I'm the gray area because I'm half Asian, you know. But I'll tell you what, I couldn't get a job for a few years after Power Rangers. I was lucky to get that role. Because after then, I went through a depression. I couldn't get a job. Anytime I went out for an audition, it was like for an Asian dude. And then so I go in, and there's an Asian dude next to me that's an actual Asian dude, like full on, that looks Asian. And I go in, they're going to be like, hey, this guy, what is he, Hispanic? You know, no, not that guy. You know, let's get the Asian guy, you know. He looks Asian, you know, so I wouldn't get those roles. And anytime I went in for like a Caucasian role, I couldn't get that either because I didn't look like a Caucasian. So I couldn't get a job. I had a really hard time. And so I was very fortunate enough to, well, I ended up starting a band at that point, and because I was like, I don't know what else to do. And then I got into voiceover, which was, you know, really kind of helped bring me out of that whole thing and helped me to keep acting, actually. Because there's a time where I was like, I don't know if I can do acting anymore. Yeah, so it was tough for me at that point. But, you know, it all just takes time, you know. Maybe I'll never, you know, land that Asian American role, but maybe the people behind me will, you know. Maybe I can kind of do something to help, you know. But we'll see.
Do you have any upcoming projects that you can mention?
That I can mention?
Yes.
Blue Exorcist, Season 2. They've already announced it, so I can talk about it. That's pretty much all I can talk about. Well, as far as, well, I mean, none of you guys really mentioned my band, but my band, I Shine. This is our last year. We've been a band since 2004. I think now it's our 13th, 14th, or 15th album. I can't remember. I lost track. And so we're releasing our final album April 1st. Is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Releasing our, I should know this, but digitally. So that's going to be our final album. We're finishing out this year, and I am starting a new music project. But other than that, I don't know if there's not really anything else that I think I'm allowed to talk about, or I'm not sure of, at least. But there are. I am working, but unfortunately, we always sign NDAs now. It wasn't like that in the beginning. I mean, there was some of it, you know, or at least I was, I don't know, maybe dumber. But now it's like every single time it's like, oh, I can't talk about that, you know. But or it might just be because a couple people got in trouble, like big time, and don't get hired anymore.
So what was your experience like going back to a project like Akira because it had an old dub and then you went in and to revamp this thing? Was it like I'm gonna do this better, or was it like it's so great that I get to work on a classic?
Yes, it was great. I did think like this is amazing that I get to be a part of this. In fact, if you look at, I think it's a special edition DVD, they have like interviews with some of the cast. And there's like, they have me for like, I don't know, like 10 seconds. It's not even that long. But it's like, all I'm doing is like, I'm rambling really fast. I'm like, you know, and then that's it. That's all my interviews. Because I was super excited to get that role, you know, but also very scared because there's a lot to live up to. But I did find it kind of cool that the original director, I was told he wasn't 100% happy with what was done in English and wanted it more like the Japanese. And the translation was definitely more like it. There are some things I remember when I watched Akira the first time that I didn't understand until I started working on it. Like, for example, and that just is a cultural thing too, of Japanese people, but when I first watched it, you know, and then, I can't remember the guy's name, but Kaneda takes his friend's bike that has just died, and it's like, revs it and crashes it, and just burns it, blows it up, and I was like, perfectly good bike. Why would he do that? You know, I just didn't understand that until, you know, we got to work on it, and then through whatever was going on and a few things that either Kaneda said or somebody else said, I realized, I was like, oh, it's because in their culture, they burn things for, you know, their loved ones or whatever, so that they can have it in heaven or the afterlife. And so I was like, oh, he's burning his bike so he can have it. And I was like, oh man, that got me. I was like, yeah, it's cool. It's much cooler now. It's not just him being stupid and blowing up a bike. Not that they meant that, but it just didn't come across, at least for me.
I did want to touch a little bit on Eyeshine, because we've been following the band for many years. In fact, My Favorite Kingdom was one of our favorite albums that we got to cover the year it was released. In fact, it was a bit of a highlight for us to see us being quoted on the official Eyeshine website after we covered it. I wanted to ask some of your favorite moments of playing with the band and such.
Oh my gosh, so many great moments, you know. Sometimes the awesome moments are the ones that you look back at and laugh at, you know. They weren't so awesome at the time. I don't recall, because we played all over the place, a ton of shows, but I remember going, oh no, I do remember, this was Wichita, Kansas actually, and there was only 3 of us there, and I was playing bass, and then, you know, we usually, in the beginning we would bring our own gear, but then we had to get backline, so they would provide the instruments, or not the instruments, but the gear, you know, like the amps and the drums and stuff like that. And so we get there, and the drums are there, there's a guitar amp, and then there is a speaker, like a stereo speaker. And if you don't know how that works, you need an amplifier to power a speaker. And then I get up there and I have the bass, and I'm like, what is this doing here? And then it's like, oh, that's your bass amp. And I'm like, that's a speaker. It's like, oh, yeah, you know, just plug into it. And I was like, I can't just plug into this and get sound. It's like, yeah, you can't look in the back. You can plug in right there. And I'm like, I can't plug into there and get sound. And I plug in. I'm like, nothing's coming out because you need to power it. And then like, oh, yeah, well, I don't know. Like, what? And then so Polo and I, we ran around and we found a karaoke machine in the next room and we stole it. And then we plugged that on top and powered it and plugged it in, and I ended up having to use that. But there's a lot of those stories, you know, or there's stories where we had to play in front of like 3,500 people, and I get there, and then, you know, if you're a guitarist, you buy your first guitar, and then you get that free like 15-watt amp that's like this big.
Yes.
We had 2 of those to play for 3,500 people, and it was like, oh, okay. And we did it, but it was like, okay, we're going to have to figure out how to mic this. But it's a lot of that stuff that is more kind of the experiences that I actually enjoyed. Not at the time. At the time was like, oh no, what are we going to do? But yeah, there are a lot of them.
So Vash the Stampede is one of my personal favorite characters. I really like how he seems very carefree and simplistic, but he really has like a lot going on inside. Where did you draw inspiration from for that role?
You know, going into that one, I wasn't familiar with the show, and I remember it was like the first couple episodes, might have even been the first episode, and he goes in somewhere and he's like, I can't remember it too well, but he's like, it's in a bar or somewhere, and there's like fighting going on all over the place, and he's about to shoot some guy, and he says, Ren, right? And then I was like, what does rem mean? Is that a Japanese word? And then Leah Sargent, I don't think even she knew at the time. She was like, oh no, it's like he's remembering something. And then, or she wasn't telling me. And I was like, you mean like he's saying remember but only saying rem? And she was like, something like that. And I was like, okay. And so I remember not knowing what's going on and having no idea and just being confused. As far as inspiration, I mean, I was a very shy kid growing up. Eventually I became a punk, and then I kind of became a clown, and it was very goofy, throughout. Especially at home, I was way goofy. So I drew a lot of that wild, kooky goofiness from my childhood to play a lot of Vash when he's just over the top, But there are those moments which really drew me in. And I don't know if it was just I was really interested in wanting to know what that history was when you say in REM or whatever, and things like that, that I was like, what is this dark past? Because I had nothing that I could go find or available to me that I could figure out what his past was. And so it was really more of my wanting to know what that history was and playing those moments, of him in those moments, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
What was your favorite moment with a fan? Since you've had fans of Power Rangers fans are crazy, music fans are crazy,
Gosh,
and
there's so
anime
many.
fans are really fanatical. So.
There's so many. With Power Rangers, there's a few. Like I remember just after working, we on the way back to our trailer to change. There's just a line of kids, there's this like caution tape or whatever, and they just have things, and I'm just going by signing, Or the first movie, the premiere at the Man Chinese, and I'm walking up, I'm trying to sign some things, and some mom grabs me and pulls me into the crowd, and people start ripping my clothes. And then a security guard or somebody like grabs me and picks me up out of it, and I was like, what just happened? So Power Ranger fans, that was that one. And then, I don't know, anime fans, there's so many times when I don't know, like I've heard stories like it's often that a person has gone through something difficult in their life, and watching this anime helped them, or helped them get through it, kind of took their mind off of it or whatever. And so hearing that, kind of makes it worth it, Like for me, I just think, what am I contributing to anything? I'm just talking, I'm just acting, And then to hear stories like that, then I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, there's those stories.
I believe that's all the time we have for today.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone for attending.
Do you think you might have a tiny chance to sign some stuff for me?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yes.
Security.